Still broadcasting from the Civic Cypher Studios, this is the QR Code, where we share perspective, seek understanding, and shape outcomes. The man you are about to hear from is a man who brings more opportunities to me than he ever could know. He is the Q in the QR Code. He goes by the name of Q Ward.
The voice you just heard is just witnessing what it feels like when you look in the mirror. He is the R in the QR Code. He goes by the name Ramses Ja.
Right, we need you to stick around. A little later on in the show, we got to wade through some more muck. It turns out Kid Rock likes underage girls too. Maybe that surprises you, maybe it doesn't. Once I hear it, doesn't surprise me. And we're going to tell you all about what he said in his own words. Prior to that, we're going to have some dialogue. How would you approach forgiving your worst enemy? I'm sure we're going to have some interesting thoughts there. But right now, and as always, it is time for Q Ward's Clapback. The numbers told the truth. Q?
So, Rams, let's talk about what happened last night. Because contrast matters. It helps us tell stories. While millions of people were watching the Super Bowl halftime show that brought together languages, cultures, and communities in real time, there was also a smaller, angrier counter program happening at the same time. And the gap between those two, let's just say it wasn't subtle. It was massive. And I don't just mean in the way that ratings are measured, but it was a cultural verdict. On one screen, you had a halftime performance rooted in joy, rhythm, history, and belonging. A moment that didn't explain itself, didn't apologize. It didn't even translate who it was for. On the other screen, you had programming built almost entirely on grievance. Anti-immigrant, anti-black, anti-brown, anti-Spanish, framed as patriotic culture, but mostly driven by grievance and resentment. And here's the part that matters the most. The audiences for these two performances, they were not similar in size. This matters because in today's world, attention is a currency. Attention is power. And last night, the country showed us what it is actually drawn to. On one hand, there was an event that says this is who we are. On another, this is what we're afraid of losing. And the overwhelming majority of people chose the first story. So let's be clear about what the counter programming really was. It was not aspirational. Rams, it wasn't even creative. It wasn't additive. Much like all the lives matter that followed after Black Lives Matter, it only existed in opposition of something else. That's not culture. That's anti-culture. It doesn't build anything new. It does not add anything. It reacts. It resists. It hardens. And that's exactly why it had to happen last night. Not because it could compete, but because it needed proximity to something great. It needed proximity to something progressive so that it could contrast. It needed to siphon its identity from an opposition because it could not stand on its own. Mm-hmm. Fear does not stand well on its own. We've learned that. So look at what each side offered. Again, on one hand, music that crossed borders. Spanish sang and spoken without apology. Black and brown and white solidarity without announcement. Joy as a shared experience. On the other hand, the usual: anger, fake exclusion, nostalgia for dominance, and grievance. Angry grievance wrapped in a flag and called patriotism. One invited everyone in. The other warned everyone to stay out. And here's the part that continues to repeat itself historically. Fear does not scale. Joy does.
Mm.
Fear contracts, it shrinks, it tightens, it closes. Joy expands, it grows. Fear needs constant reinforcement. Joy spreads organically. That's why hundreds of millions tuned in to a performance that felt alive and expansive, honest. Mm, while the counter program struggled a bit to hold that same attention. This is what a lot of people don't want to confront. That political movement understands culture just enough to fear it, but not enough to create it. So instead of art, it offers outrage. Instead of rhythm, it offers divisive rhetoric. Instead of vision, it offers walls. And last night showed the limits of such strategy. Listen to the language that drove the backlash: non American, invasion, replacement, words meant to shrink the world. Meanwhile, the other show did the opposite. It named countries, languages, and people and placed the United States inside that story, not separate or above it. That matters, especially given the moment that we're in. Last night happened amid escalating anti immigrant rhetoric, threats framed as enforcement, and language meant to intimidate rather than protect. So, when the biggest cultural stage on earth chose inclusion over intimidation, joy over grievance, and unity over fear, it landed hard. They tried to counter program culture, but you can't counter program actual belonging. All you can do is reveal how small your vision is by comparison. Last night, the audience made that very, very clear. So the next time someone dismisses culture as just entertainment, remember what we saw last night. Culture is where the future rehearses itself. And last night, the future looked loud, brown, black, multilingual, multicultural, joyful, and completely uninterested in going backwards. The other show seems stuck in the rearview mirror.
You know, I didn't see the Super Bowl, and I didn't watch the halftime show purposefully because I wanted to wait until today to hear your thoughts on it, and I'm so glad that I did. I, you know, I didn't miss much about the Super Bowl itself, but I wanted to like hear the joy in your voice, and I'm glad I did. This being my first kind of introduction to how that went, that feels kind of special. So thank you for that. All right. Well, how would you approach forgiving your worst enemy? All right. Let me set this up for us. Here's the rules. We have to forgive this person. And let's assume that they've done something that is forgivable. They haven't done something unforgivable. They've done something forgivable. So it's reasonable. It's you know, it's within our wheelhouse. This isn't someone that harmed a baby or something like that, you know. We're going to take everyone through our thought process of how we get from being very angry and maybe avoidant of this person to kind of forgiving them and what grace looks like. Do you want to go first or should I?
I'll go first because I'll probably be much shorter than you.
Okay.
Because there's a lot about the premise that's lost on me.
Okay.
In my mind, in order to be my, what's the word again? Enemy?
Worst enemy, yeah.
My worst enemy, at some point I had to care about you.
Mm.
like a stranger couldn't become my worst enemy. Like how?
Yeah.
Like betrayed by a stranger just wouldn't feel like betrayal. It would just feel like a stranger, did something wrong to me. So the worst enemy part means at some point I had to care. And worst enemy means you didn't do something trivial. You didn't just hurt my feelings. You didn't, you know what I mean? Like, so the premise here seems to be that you have to forgive that person.
Okay.
And my question would be, as I turn it back to you, is why? Like, why must I give you access to destroy me again? And I say
Mm.
again, because the only way that somebody I love became my worst enemy, I gave them full access to destroy me. And they decided to take me up on that. I gave them full trust. I was fully vulnerable. I was wide open. And I guess that's the difference. Like, some people require people to earn their trust like merit. And after they spent enough time earning it, they kind of can't lose it from there. And you become like a doormat. A person that you love can do you wrong over and over, and you forgive over and over. I'm not that way. Right at hello. If I've decided that you have access, you have full access. I love you. I trust you. But I don't need to be run afoul over and over again for you to lose that trust and for me to no longer feel safe.
Yeah.
So if you became worst enemy, this idea that I have to forgive you is where I hit the pause button, because
Okay.
there's a lot, what I mean? There's a lot of nuance, a lot of context, and a lot of detail
Sure.
missing from how you became worst enemy for me
Uh-huh.
to even know how, step one would be in forgiving you.
So let's do this then, because, and you're not wrong, and that's an entirely reasonable approach to take, but those muscles, I think they're really already strong. That what is it, the Heisman pose? Those muscles have been worked out for a long time. These forgiveness muscles, maybe not so much. And let's just say there's an imaginary circumstance where we have to, let's say a person found religion or whatever, they found out that the world has been a lie and they've been operating under false premises and they've hurt people and they're trying to make atonement, and you realize, okay, that's reasonable, that explains everything. What muscles do you now deploy to get from where you were with this person to where you at least can say to that person, I forgive you? Just in case people are dealing with this sort of stuff, maybe I'm dealing with it. What does that look like for you?
Again, the reason that those muscles are so well defined is because I'm not a child anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I no longer have bandwidth to allow that type of toxicity or that type of harm into my space. So again, in order for us to get there, the overstep had to be significant. You and we're not meeting new best friends at this age. There's no, if I live 60 more years, I won't meet another Ramses. There's just my capacity for life does not have enough room for this level of brotherhood to walk off the street into my life again.
Sure, I know what you mean.
Right. So, but even close friends, even those who we will welcome into our fold and who might grow old in our circle and do things with us and help us try to change the world. Again, I ask, how do you become worst enemy? Like worst, again, because that's the framing that makes this question need more than 10 minutes to address.
Yeah.
Worst enemy. It's not like, how do you forgive someone that hurt you or that betrayed you or crossed you? Worst enemy, like I can think of some people that you and I have had some bad interactions with,
but they don't qualify as worst enemy. Yeah,
it's just kind of been different to us at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
I know
one person sticks out immediately, probably to both of us. Like, probably the only person that would stick out immediately to both of us. That person ain't my worst enemy.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
I still have no interest in forgiving that person or having any interaction with them at all. So imagine someone who got to worst enemy.
Yeah, I know.
Like, for sure, my Heisman muscles are strong, but and I'm not above forgiveness. I'll give an example. There's somebody who I think broke my heart is the right word. Talked about me bad, really, really took me for granted and treated me bad. but life got really hard and I had something really traumatic happen. And that person was one of the first people to reach out. All was forgiven in that moment. Even this person might not realize that because there's no relationship there. We don't go back and forth. But I was dealing with something really hard and really scary. And me and that person were not cool. Like beefing, not cool, not just indifferent, not just no, we not cool at all. But this person heard that something really, really hard happened and reached out. And that person doesn't even know it, but there's a bridge built there. And instant forgiveness came with this person didn't need anything from me. I don't need anything from them. We don't want and or need anything from each other. But that person was decent enough and empathetic enough and selfless enough to say, hey, once upon a time, this person mattered to me and they're going through something impossible. Let me just see if they're okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but again, that person wasn't a worst enemy either. It wasn't an enemy at all.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Well, then, I see what you mean. If we're like all the way up in that line, then obviously that's a much longer conversation. But I think that if we just kind of move that line back a little bit, I don't know, for me, I think how I would approach it if I had to do that, because I know some people that have, like you mentioned, hurt me, but they're not my worst enemy. You know what I mean? So you're right. That's something that's really important. But I think how I would approach it is, I think just knowing that people are flawed. I know that we all know that, but I think projecting it to the front of my head is a good starting point. Seeing how maybe I potentially could have ended up in that set of circumstances, feeling that frustrated, launching those attacks, maybe a different version of me, because that's not my way to attack someone. But you know what I mean? I could kind of see, I guess, another person's path by, deploying empathy and, and then one of the things that I've had to learn over the course of my life is that not everyone has the resources that I have. Cognitive resources. Some people can't communicate their feelings, and so they're left with either frustrated, energy, or they react physically or by doing something, sabotage, whatever it is that they can, because they can't express themselves. And so trapped in this sounds bad, but being trapped in a smaller mind with maybe less options is not something that, everyone's responsible for their behavior, and we're all brilliant beings because we are all humans, Homo sapiens sapiens. But I do recognize that, everyone has their own journey. And I guess if I had to start somewhere, it'd probably be somewhere around there. But I think the first thing to do is just humanize a person, I guess. I could have been in that situation, or maybe if I didn't have the same resources, or I didn't know the same lessons that I learned in my life, or whatever the case is. I might have ended up doing something similar and just, seeing the humanity in them and starting there. Again, if I had to. It's not my go-to, but if I had to, that might be how it looks. All right, let's move on. Entertainment. Kid Rock likes underage girls too. Okay, if you've been listening to this show, not just today's episode, but we have to cover this so much. And yeah. You realize that there's a problem here. There's a problem in this country. There's a problem with, in particular, white men, but to a larger extent, there's a problem with men. That includes black men too. And there's a problem with like this sex crazed culture in which we live that fetishes. How do I say that word? Fetishizes.
Yeah, that's a complicated mixture of vowels and consonants right there.
But you get what I mean. We live in a culture that fetishizes. I'll go with that one. Human females, from the time that they're little girls. And this is something that I knew my whole life because I have two little sisters. I knew this, I know the back of my hand, because I saw the way people would treat my little sisters. And I'm the man of the house. I'm still a little boy, but So I understood that. But also I learned it even more so during the Me Too movement. That movement changed a lot. But the better parts, you know, there's better and then there's worse, of course, but the better parts for Ramses, I was able to really lock in and try my best, get as close as I can to seeing the world through the lens of a woman. How does it feel to be a woman? How do these things look? What possibilities are there? Where are the threats? It's like a SWOT analysis, you know what I mean? From the female perspective. And again, that was true. Women being sexualized at such a young age, it is a problem. Now, when we talk about this administration, if you've been listening to this show in particular, and indeed all the rest of our shows, because they've all taken place in this administration, you realize that there are a lot of people, Republicans, who have a problem in that they are attracted to children. And turns out Kid Rock's one of them. So let's get into this. Kid Rock likes underage girls too. This from MSN. Kid Rock has been called a disgusting human being after a joke he told on SNL about underage girls resurfaced. The 55-year-old MAGA ally is under fire once again after a clip from his appearance on Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update in 2001 went viral on social media. Kid Rock is one of Donald Trump's closest pals, with the singer being the headliner for Turning Point USA's alternative Super Bowl halftime show. However, Kid Rock has found himself back in hot water after an uncomfortable joke he made the rounds on social media, during which he said that Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen were old enough to pursue, but the twins were 14 years old at the time, while he was 30 and already a father. Quote, "Why is every guy in America waiting for these chicks to turn 18? I mean, you know what I'm saying? If there's grass on the field, play ball," unquote, the musician remarked on SNL. In May 2024, David Peisner said the all-summer-long singer grew drunk and belligerent, even pulling a gun from behind his chair and waving it at him during an interview at Kid Rock's home. Quote, "And I got a effing GD gun right here if I need it," unquote, the MAGA cheerleader allegedly shouted. He goes on to say, "I got them everywhere." Additionally, Kid Rock was caught saying a homophobic slur on camera while he was on stage at a Tennessee bar in 2021. In the footage, he shouted, "You effing," it's the F word, "with your phones out," and also saying, "You can post this right here," while grabbing his crotch and looking directly at the camera. Following the incident, Kid Rock later defended himself by repeating the same slur in a combative response to the backlash. Furthermore, recently, a song, "Cool Daddy Cool," featuring Kid Rock, went viral for its lyrics about underage girls in it. The song says, quote, young ladies, I like 'em underage. See, some say that's statutory, but I say it's mandatory," unquote. Okay. Now, again, this is a problem that's commonplace. We did a segment, this was some months back, but we did a segment where we talked about we could only fit in maybe 30 cases of, relatively speaking, high profile Republicans and their crimes against children, sexual crimes against children, the cases that they were fighting or were serving sentences for, or whatever the case is. And these are just the convicted people, not the people accused. We've done a segment where we had to look at the data of, like, where does actual crime come from? Where does violent crime come from? Blah, blah, blah. Because there's this narrative on the right that suggests that black people, because of their blackness, are committing crime. And we have to provide context for our listeners. It's black people do commit crimes, often because of poverty. People commit crimes, often because of poverty. And if there are more black people overrepresented in the impoverished ranks, then you might see more black people represented in, the carceral system. Add to that a whole bunch of racism, and then you have sort of what we have today. But in covering this stuff, we realize that we've come across data that suggests that this particular phenomenon that we're looking at here is wildly overrepresented among the ranks of white men, particularly those that lean conservative. And I want to say one thing. I've heard that, I have to repeat it. I'm so sorry to everyone. I have to repeat it because this is how radio works. But I apologize if this grosses you out as much as it grosses me out. But I've heard the grass on the field joke that he made before when I was maybe like 16, 17, high school age. And that was sort of a thing that you would say. I never said that. Grass on the field sounds gross to me, and then I'm not really into sports like that or anything. But I've heard that. And it comes from people that you might imagine look something similar to Kid Rock and probably come from that way of thinking, that type of culture, whatever. But I've heard that before, and it was always gross back then, but at least it was kids talking about other kids. It might have been around this time. You know, I graduated in 2000, so when Kid Rock says it on SNL, it was a couple of years later. But I've never heard it from a 30-year-old talking about a 14-year-old. There's a problem here. There's a problem in the White House with the president. There's a problem with all the associates that are protecting these people. There's a problem with Turning Point USA. They would rather pick this and call this American than let the people watch Bad Bunny, who is indeed American. I don't want to talk about the rest of the time. I could keep going, but Q, I'm sure you have some reflections. I'm sorry, though. I had to get them bars off.
I told you before, man, I don't mind you getting your bars off, but get them off. When you toss to me with no time to get nothing off, it's like, okay, so what am I supposed to do now? I think it's clear that American and patriot only means white, and only means white, right? Meaning that's the only qualification. Once you're white, then being repugnant doesn't matter. Being despicable, being disgusting, being racist, being xenophobic, being misogynist, none of that matters, right? As long as you're white.
Yeah.
If you're any other ethnicity, from any other culture, from any other place on earth, speak any other language, and you're not white, then you're a criminal, and you're less than, and you're anti-American, and you're unpatriotic, and you're all these things. You're anti-Christ, you're anti-country. But once you're white, you can be anti-anything. And you're still American, and you're still a patriot, and they still support you, and you're still what they want and who they want. And they will find a way to do Olympic level mental gymnastics to not ever call you wrong, to not ever hold you accountable, to not ever point that judgmental finger at you. As long as you're all white, you're all right.
Wow. I saw it coming, and I was still blown away by you sticking that landing, man. Good job. Okay, well, we've said our piece. Again, I just a quick reminder, please, if you have the time, read the story about the four ladies who were found decapitated in Haiti. Please read the story about the Epstein files being released before, or the announcement of his death being released before his death actually took place. The stuff we left on the cutting floor, as it were. But that's going to do it for us here at the QR Code. Today's show was produced by Chris Thompson. If you have some thoughts you'd like to share, use the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. And while you're there, be sure to hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. Follow us on all social media at Civic Cypher. You can find me at RamsesJaw, Q at Civic Cypher, and join us next time as we share our news with our voice from our perspective right here on the QR Code.